Ladies and gentlemen, it's currently August 1st, 2023, and a couple of weeks ago, Chess.com announced the launch of a new chess engine that is supposed to overtake all of the others. Hopefully. I uploaded that video and you all enjoyed it very much. I named it 1 million ELO chessbot. Not quite, but it defeated a lot of chessbots in its way, except for one. And that's what I'm going to share with you in today's video. This is a matchup of 1,000 speed games played between Torch, the new chess engine, and Stockfish, the incumbent, the champion, the best chess engine in the world, rapidly approaching 3,700 plus. And this is a wild video. I'm first going to show you some moments where Torch succeeded, and the last game that I'm going to show you in this video is absolutely going to blow your mind. I'm going to show you one of the filthiest ideas I've ever seen in chess, and naturally played by two computers. We should just sit back, relax, and enjoy, because this is otherworldly chess that you are about to see. Of course, the computers play like this. You ask the computers to play two openings against each other, one with white, one with black, to get to the same position. That is how computer chess is played, because if it would be played otherwise, they would just make a bunch of draws, because chess played perfectly is a draw. So, first game I'm going to show you. Torch has the white pieces. It's a Sicilian defense from Stockfish. It's an open Sicilian defense. And in this position, Stockfish plays knight bd7, which is a whatever move, but then plays a6. So it basically played a knight or Sicilian with a6 and then knight bd7, which is a bit of a sideline. And Torch immediately plays g4. It does not go back to traditional developing principles of moving bishops. It pushes g4 right away. And its intention to do that is to try to take advantage of the slightly inaccurate development of its opponent. So it plays pawn to g4, and it's ready to go g5 at a moment's notice, but it does like this to defend its center. And a couple moves later, it plays the move g5. In these Sicilian structures, the most important thing is the d5 square. If white can successfully win the battle for the d5 square, white will have an outpost there, white will put pressure there, and there, and there, and life is going to be good. A couple moves later, we have pure, unleashed Sicilian defense. The Sicilian is very, very, very much like this. Opposite side castling. Black is trying to play b5, a5, rook c8, queen a5. The bishop on e6 goes this way. White is trying to go like this, and f4 and bishop e2. I mean, like, you cannot ask for a better opening for two bots to play. h4, b5. I mean, they're just firing away at each other. The king slides over, which is a very common thing to do when you castle queenside to prepare for the attack. Knight takes b3. C takes b3. Not A takes b3, but C takes b3, because now the C file is open and you've built up a very powerful cluster of pawns. Had you taken with the A pawn, black would have maybe gotten a5, a4, but this way you've created a very powerful brick wall. Now, knight to g3. Some of you may have been wondering about this move, or maybe you're not paying attention. You're just mesmerized by my voice. Yeah, this is very much a thing. The problem is that now the knight took the bishop, but the bishop never got a chance to move in this game, and the pawns are simply going to walk up the board. A couple moves later, h5 by white, b4 by black. Right back in your face. The knight goes to d5, and I told you the winner of that square will win the battle for this opening, and probably the game. Queen e6, and the queen just goes back to d3. If you'd like to attack your opponent, making a trade like this does not make any sense, because you have now lost the battle for that square, because you're never going to get there. This is under a little bit of fire, and the position is just equal. So the queen goes back. a5. There's h6. Okay, a very, very, very long and grinding game. Rook c8. Pawn takes g7, and now a4. So Stockfish is just throwing it right back in your face. It looks like white has absolutely nothing to do over here, so white takes, tries to fight back. The rook goes back to a5, and still pressure is happening on that side of the board. We have bishop to d2, putting some pressure on the pawn on b4, and in this position, black plays rook a8, hitting the a2 pawn, a4. If you take en passant, I'm going to take your rook. So d5. Black is exploding the center of the board. Here comes white's king. Rook h1, queen to g6 pinning. Rook h6 pushes the queen back, and now the queen slides out of the way. Black takes in the center, white takes in the center, and black retreats. And from this position, Torch pulls the brakes on the attack and basically says, Stockfish survived the attack and definitely fought me on equal grounds. but my A pawn is going to be decisive. It's going to have this outside pass pawn throughout this endgame that is going to restrict the black pieces. And slowly, it just begins trading. It doesn't even mind being down material. You cannot actually take this free bishop. The threat is rook g2. If you take queen d8 here, check, and it's mate, as you can see, in 2 moves, because I take the bishop and then I take the queen. Black's position is just in a bit of a disarray. You can play bishop to f4. I'm going to play bishop c5, threatening checkmate, rook c2, and I win these 2 pawns. And now it's just a matter of time. And that's exactly what Torch does. And it really is a matter of time, because it takes nearly another 50 moves, but slowly, we win the pawns. I mean, there's like some ridiculous tactics here with bishop coming down and trading, and you see the pawns survive. That's the most important thing. And this is just smooth sailing. The king joins the party, the queen, the bishop, trying to get a trade, centralizing. Slowly you advance. And the king walks all the way to the other side of the board, avoiding perpetual check. Queen e8, queen c6, bishop c5. And the rest of this game is mostly just ceremony. And, you know, just out of respect, they play on until a checkmate. This was a very fun game. I mean, it was punctuated like, you know, h5, b4, just both sides throwing these attacking pawns at each other. And when it was all said and done, it was actually Torch beating Stockfish by using the countermeasure, the defensive measure, to create a long-term outside pass pawn component to this game. This was a nice game from Torch, and Torch had a couple of nice games. Here's another one that Torch played. This one was more of like a ready, and then it was Black playing a reverse London, which is a thing. And this one was, again, opposite side castling. This time White was on the short side and Black was on the long side. Bishop f4, bishop d6, and we had a big exchange in the center. Bishop for knight, and then bishop for knight. And you just think about how completely ridiculous computers are. Like, no human being on the planet plays this move. It's an insane move to play. How could you possibly give up the bishop that you've put in front of your king? For what, right? How is that possible? Now you just have weak light squares. No, it doesn't care at all. Bishop to g5, and the idea is that if the rook moves to e8, let's say, now I play this, the queen is forced to c8, and White is likely just completely winning because the queen is just jailed. I mean, the queen, there's nothing for the queen to do. Knight b5, b4, b5. So instead of that, Black, aka Stockfish, takes in the center and gives up the rook. So they get a bishop, a bishop and a pawn for a rook, with the possibility of attacking h5, h4. When Stockfish attacks with Black, it's very fun because it doesn't think it's any worse now, and it just brings the knight back. Knight takes e4, and a couple moves later, it just starts playing h5. And the thing is with White, if you acknowledge this like a human being, I'll play g5, and if you take, I'm not even going to take back. I'm just going to play h4, and then I'm going to play f6, and I mean, I'm slowly going to absolutely ruin your king. I'm going to take and mate you somehow on the light squares here. So rook to c1 is played instead. h4, like Stockfish is just going for it with the black pieces, sacrificing a little bit of material, trying to create this big attack. g4, pushing pawns in front of its king. Now here Stockfish finds a crazy idea. The bishop is hanging, but it just lets it hang. h3, you can't actually take, of course, because queen g5, queen g2, but the insane thing is you actually can. Queen g5, king f1, rook h4, e4, queen g2, the king actually escapes to e2, and oh, that would be nice, but rook f4, rook f1, and there's some ridiculous lines here where White is actually not losing, but Torch just decides, I'm not going to enter into any of that. I'm going to centralize my queen, and now we have a very complex transition to an endgame, but we see Torch having very good longevity, like doing a very nice job defending its king, and Torch is patient. It does not mind. It pokes and prods and improves its position very slowly. And then here it finds a beautiful tactic. Queen d5, which attacks the rook. And when the rook moves, it sacrifices its queen to split the black pawns, win back the queen. And it's a very slow process. Black has 2 extra pawns, but it's a bishop and 2 pawns for a rook. And the rook is just too strong. The rook comes in, the knight reroutes all the way back to b3, c2, and slowly Torch is going to make Stockfish work for it. There's there's too many weaknesses, and you just cannot compete against the rook in the endgame. And all White needs to win this is a pawn. That's it. And that's exactly what Torch survives with. It gives a check, it plays rook a4, and this is a winning endgame as long as it's able to keep its pawn. It has an opportunity to win this endgame. Maybe with a little bit more time on the clock, Stockfish would have found a way to draw it, but it's just a matter of time, and Torch walks in, forces the black pieces to the back rank, infiltrates, and it all comes down to one pawn. And knight c7, knight d5, rook h8, and you just cannot defend yourself. It swarms in the endgame, and this one takes over 100 moves. But Torch doesn't even promote a queen. It just plays knight f5 and rook g7, and it's a checkmate. A very, very fun couple of games where, in this one in particular, Stockfish was the one actually counterattacking. It gave up a rook like this, but then a couple moves later, it played h5, h4, h3. I mean, it was like really, really trying to obliterate Torch and make it seem like it doesn't belong. But my friends, unfortunately, Stockfish still reigns supreme, and I am about to show you 3 of the many games that it won in this match, and I will tell you the scoreline at the end. Stockfish did unbelievably brilliant things in this match, and if you're still watching and you haven't clicked on anything else, thank you, because I'm about to blow your mind. The last game of this video, I was watching it and I didn't even understand. It took me like 5 attempts, so I will try to break this down for you. There was a game they played where Stockfish was white and black played bishop to g4, g6, and in this position, rather than attacking the bishop or finishing your development or anything like that, Stockfish undevelops its knight. And the point is that the bishop on g4 is misplaced. And now I'm going to play f3, d5, and I'm going to have a springboard for my attack. e5, d5, knight d4, giving up a pawn. Stockfish doesn't care. It is more important for Stockfish to keep the dark squared bishop, because if you take, and then take with the queen, it's just opening up black's bishop. And in this position, Stockfish undevelops the other knight. When I saw this, I was like, are you kidding me? And what does it want? It just wants to go c3. It just wants to say the knight got stuck in the territory. And now the knight has to go here. Now I take. I told you in the Sicilian, same exact structure. This is not a Sicilian defense, but in chess, pawn structures can overlap in different openings. c4, because we want to win the battle for the d5 square. The knight goes back, and now here comes our knight. And that's literally all Stockfish needs. It just needs a little bit more space and a little bit of a weakness. Opposite side castling, it does not even take the pawn on d6 yet. It's going to wait. King b1, a6. And now when b5 comes, the bishop on d6, on c6 is hanging. Knight to d5, rook d8, sacrifices the queen, gets it back with the check, knight c6, and it actually lost the rook. I mean, this looks like a beginner's tactic. It looks like a beginner got to this position and saw, oh, I have queen takes bishop. Oh, I'm so smart. And then I go here, and then, oh, I hung a rook. No, this was all planned. It literally just lost the rook on purpose so it could attack the rook, kick the rook out of the position, and not even take here. Just do this. Why? Because Stockfish realized that it can lose a rook, but the quality of its remaining 5 pieces is higher than the quality of the remaining black pieces. So right now, black has 2 rooks and 3 pieces. White has 1 rook and 4 pieces. And all white is going to do is use a pawn majority and a bit more space on this side of the board. That's it. That is all white is going to use to try to win this game. Watch. a4. Knight d5. Knight d4 check. I'm fine taking. Now I'm going to bring my king. It's just a maximum utilization of resources. Bishop d5, b4, rook b1, b5. Completely effortless. With one tactical combination, Stockfish completely removed half of the board from mattering. Look, in this position, queen c6, knight e7, and the rest of the game occurs on the queen side. Knight d5, king d3, it just completely effortless. At some point, the board is going to open up, obviously, but look at this. I mean, it just completely focuses on one side of the board until the position is just simply not defendable anymore. Now this rook is just stranded on the edge of the board. The rook can't come back. The rook tried to play defense. It ended up getting booted to the edge, and now white is just winning. White is going to transition into a winning rook endgame. rook d7, d2, rook f7 check, rook d7 back, and we stop the pawn. And now we're just going to promote. Yeah, I mean, king d1, but that's it. And black tries to fight back, but now loses a bishop. King d2, and yes, they've lost 2 pawns, but white has knight and bishop for a rook, which is more than enough to win. And white, it's just going to be a matter of time. Bishop c4, king g2, pawn to h4. The king is checked many, many times. The bishop goes to f7, and this is all you need. You just need 1 pawn. Why do you just need 1 pawn? Because you need the threat of a promotion. And now it's going to be a very long process where white is slowly going to try to advance the pawn, and it's knight, bishop, and pawn versus a rook, which means that the pawn is going to promote into a queen, the rook is going to give itself up for the pawn, and white is going to demonstrate how to win with bishop and knight versus king. And that is exactly what happens. And white slowly marches 1 pawn forward, because that's all white needs, gets it, and now demonstrates the fastest possible way to checkmate with a bishop and a knight by forcing the king to the same color corner as the bishop, which makes it significantly simpler. Knight c7, knight a6, bishop c6 mate. I mean, this was so absurd. Knight to g1, followed by knight to d1, followed by securing control over the light squares, and just queen c6, losing the rook, which just looks like an elementary mistake, with a ridiculous long-term bind of just arrows, like the arrows that I've drawn here. And it literally knew somehow that despite not having moved 2 of its pieces were of a higher quality than the pieces remaining in the black position. Stockfish is ridiculous. And this is not even the last game. I told you the last game is going to blow your mind. It's not going to disappoint you. Okay, like I'm not just saying that to increase watch time, although definitely doesn't hurt. This game is spectacular, and the last game is just otherworldly. I don't even know. d4, g6, e4, bishop g7, knight c3, pawn c6, knight f3, pawn d5. Typical stuff, easy stuff. This is the Rabaj defense, modern, however you want to describe it. Bishop f4, take. And from an early position, white is obviously doing pretty well. Black plays here, knights are traded, c5 takes. And black is castled, 6 pawns each, life is good, but life is not all that good, because white has a massive lead in development, and white is Stockfish. And it's just so fun to see how the smallest of advantages is exploitable. This Stockfish thinks that this position is 0.29. Giga Stockfish it pushes the queen out of the way, and it goes here to instigate. Rook here, rook e1, take. The queen drops back. Now we play knight g5 to create a threat. Create an imbalance. It wants to get the bishop for the knight, or it wants to tie black down, f4. Now you take, now I take, now I have 2 bishops. The pressure paid off. I got the dark squared bishop versus your bishop knight. Now, push your bishop back. Now, create an attack on your king. Even though moves like queen to g3 are possible, a queen trade benefits white because it's black who has the problem, right? The activity favors white. Queen e3, rook f1, queen f2, pawn c3, just preventing the black knight from getting close. Bishop to e6. If you take, I take, that's mate, your rook is hanging, it's game over. So you have to play rook to d8. Now I play b4, you still can't take my bishop, you go here, now I slide back to my square, you try to attack my pawn on c3, I take, and I play bishop f4, and all Stockfish needs is the tiniest bit of imbalance. It slowly, methodically expands. It has now created weaknesses, long-term targets that it is going to exploit. That is all it needs. h4. Knight e5, knight g6, rook to d2, take, all it needs. Now, slowly, it's going to maneuver its king to the defense of the pawns and also the defense of the king. Bishop d4, it's even, the material is still equal, it doesn't matter. There we go, the pawns have been targeted. It's gonna win the pawn on a6 probably. The king is now gonna have to dance its way out of checks. Otherwise, black is trying to make a draw. Okay, no draw, and now we've won a pawn. The pressure paid off. We won a pawn. Now we start the dance the other way. Queen e5. Now it's a queen and bishop versus queen and knight endgame. And black is stuck playing passive defense. White guards everything, making sure to get the king out of checks. It takes a while. All right, we're getting checked. We're moving our queen around. King d3, king d2. A lot of checks. We've got to protect our king. We're slowly reaching 100 moves, but white's pressure is going to pay off. Bishop f6, queen e4, and now white breaks. And there you go. Bishop c3, the king has to hide again. We're going to win that pawn or we're going to play b5. We've won the pawn. 105 moves. Sometimes that's what it takes in bot games. And now Stockfish, slow, methodical, calculated, up 2 pawns in an endgame, up 2 pawns in a queen endgame. Very easy now. Brings the king all the way up. The pawns are going. You could try to make a draw, but at some point I'm going to force a queen trade. And this one takes 142 moves, but the game ends with a ladder promotion. Very, very, very easy and balanced, like very easy to understand. 2 bishops versus bishop knight, but it just the simplicity of which it all occurs is amazing. Now, the last game. I told you about the last game. This was something. Pawn to e4. Pawn to e6. Stockfish with white. Torch with black. French defense. d4. d5. Knight c3. This is called the win hour. It's a very sharp, it's a very complicated type of system. e5, c5. a3. And black locks down the queen side. a4. You cannot actually take this because it looks very good, but I'll go bishop d2. And you really don't want to get involved in these positions. I mean, the pawn is one for black, but black has absolutely no development, so black plays bishop d7 instead. The sides make a little bit of pawn advancement over here, and now black begins to play f6 and try to escape the pressure. Now, you don't have to be a rocket scientist like to figure out that white is probably going to attack over here and maybe on this diagonal as well, but it's a very close position for now. Knight h6, knight f7. Torch reroutes and puts pressure on the pawn on e5 from c6 and f7, trying to capture, take, and live a happy life. Now it shuts down the center. It plays f5, and it says, you are not going to open up the center anymore. Now I'm going to try to play g5 with my rook, and I'm going to create some problems for you. That's a very tough position for white because white is stuck defending this, defending against g5. If white's plays something like, you know, bishop b2, rook g8, queen e2, black is going to go g5 and get a borderline winning attack. I mean, pawn takes, knight takes, very dangerous stuff. h4, very unpleasant. Queen d8, queen here later, queen g8. So white plays rook b1 and attacks the queen, and one move later, with the rook hanging, doesn't go back, but plays rook c5. But that doesn't make any sense because now the rook is trapped. And in this position, Stockfish loses its only other active piece, take, and seemingly has nothing to do. The pawn is not going to scare anybody. The rook has no escape. This rook is biting into granite. This bishop has absolutely no role in this game because it's a light square bishop and all the pawns are on light squares. White is not in any business to go over here. I told you I saved the best for last. In this position, Stockfish plays an obscene idea. It plays and it sacrifices the rook. What? For a pawn? Like, there is no clear reason it did that. If I asked you what changed in the position, you would say it opened the bishop. But so what? Okay, now black is completely winning. What have you accomplished? Rook c4 is disgusting. The point is, you go here. We say, okay, and that attacks the queen. I just go queen d8. Not so fast. I play queen c1, queen b2, and it's actually very hard to defend against checkmate. You just don't have the capability. You can play knight a7, that's checkmate in 1. It stops checkmate in 3, it allows checkmate in 1. So, okay, but what about queen a5? I don't understand. What about queen a5? The point is, you sacrifice the rook to open the bishop, but because black's position is so congested, bishop d6, queen a5, I still play queen c1, a retreating queen move, slowly trying to go here, and there is no defense for that. You say, of course there is. What are you talking about? Just go here anyway, because after queen b2, you play pawn to b6. And white is not going to trade queens with you because you're down a rook. You're right. There was another idea. The idea of rook takes c4, played on move 23, was to lose the rook to open the bishop, reroute the queen backwards, and if black stopped mate with pawn to b6, to play rook a1. Because that defends this, and the queen is trapped. You are threatening bishop to b4, and the queen is sealed in. And if the queen now tries to break out with something like b5, it's an avalanche. I mean, it's just an avalanche in here. You can take, I can take, I'll play rook a8, I'll get my rook back, I'll have interest. It's going to be a very bad position. Rook to a1, and the queen is trapped with bishop to b4. That is why on move 23, you needed to lose your rook for literally just one pawn to attack the queen and to bring your queen all the way back to team up with the rook. I mean, this is some sickening stuff. And I got news for you. After rook c4, dc4, bishop d6, all of this happened. Black went here, rook b2 was played. What does this move even do? Simple. You don't want to play queen b2 anymore because you don't want to trade queens. So you play rook b2. You have time to play queen c1, rook b2, and queen b1 to avoid a queen trade so your rook leads the charge, and there is nothing black can do. Literally nothing. Black can play g5 or something, queen to b1, b5, and the queen is trapped. What? So black plays knight d8, queen b1, and tries to save the queen. But now rook b7. We sack another rook. We sack another rook. You can't take it because queen b7 is just simply, it means it's just game over in a couple of moves. Knight to b7, queen b7. It's actually checkmate in 11, which obviously you see. Queen b8, bishop here to cut the king's escape, something like rook e8, queen a7 with various mate threats like bishop c5, and queen g7 as well. Very, very bad. So bishop b5 is played, rook a7. The attack continues, and at some point, white is going to cash in here, and here white plays queen c1 to go back to g5, and the rook is just left hanging because queen g7 is so devastating. Rook a8, queen g7, we take. We are still completely down a rook. We never got the rook back, but it doesn't matter because we take, we don't trade queens, and now we just push a pawn. Black is in dire straits. None of their pieces are participating in this game. They are standing around waiting to be brutalized. e7, bishop h3, bishop f5, bishop e6, and black just runs out of moves. Now comes the process of getting all my material back, and white emerges up 4 pawns. White was down a full rook, and now is up 4 pawns, and obviously is winning. You can trade the queens here, and it's just smooth sailing. 3 pawns cannot be stopped by a bishop. 4 pawns cannot be stopped by a bishop. One of them is going to get through, and they play till mate again. And the final score of a 1,000 game speed match between Stockfish and Torch was 640 for Stockfish and 360 for Torch. And I don't think Torch won any of the pairs. Meaning, if you and I played an opening against each other and you beat me when you had white, but then I beat you when I had white in the same opening, that would be us splitting a pair. If you won and I drew, then it would be you winning the pair. Torch did not, I don't think it won a single pair, and I might have miscounted, but it lost by a lot, so it's not quite there yet. Stockfish is still the king, but we'll keep an eye on Torch, and we will hope that one day it can stand up to Stockfish. Hope this was fun. This game absolutely blew my mind. Some of the others did as well, and I wanted to share them with all of you. I'm going to get back to vacation. Get out of here.